Very good evening, welcome back to the McKeer Daventry Court Hotel. Continued quarter-final action in the World Rules Pool Tour, event 5, the final event of the season. And what a match we've got here. Lee Kendall, back in form, turning back the years. Real clash of the generations. Takes on Declan Brennan, guy who's been in perpetually good form for the last couple of seasons at least. Declan's been waiting a while for this match. Lee Kendall's just come through. Very tough last 16 match. Really ground out the result there. Ended up playing for a bit over 2 hours in the end to set up this quarter-final. Prevailed in that match over Jack Whelan, 7-6. Declan Brennan also had a surprisingly close match in many ways, 7-5 against Pat Ward, who has had a very good weekend. Great player, Pat Ward, but I'm not sure how many people were thinking that he was going to take it to Declan over a best-of-13 match. It'll be interesting to see the style of this match. Lee Kendall, pretty good attacking player, but also known as an expert tactician. Been playing World Rules for, well, pretty much the whole lifetime of World Rules, so going back well into the 90s, knows every nuance of the game. So not going to be afraid to get involved in a tactical game if he needs to. I don't think he's going to set out with the game plan of slowing the game down, but I think a slower, more tactical game, it's fair to say, probably would suit Lee better. Great to see Lee at this stage either way. He's been doing some great work organising pool tournaments, Supreme Series and the Ultimate Pool Series that so many of the players on this tour have also been playing on. Nice to see him still showcasing his skills at the table. It's the man from Ireland though that's in first in this first frame. Looking a pretty presentable opportunity on the red balls. A couple of yellows potted off the break, so the table slightly more empty than it would be, and now has elected to go with the reds because they availed better position. This match is somewhat behind the rest of the schedule. The other 3 quarterfinals have already been played, so we're going to be waiting on the result of this one for some time. Sean Chipperfield and Callum Singleton are ready to contest the first semi-final. And we've just seen Clint Ianson prevail 7-6 over Phil Harrison. And Clint is now going to have a little bit of a wait as he holds off pending the outcome of this match. So, good first break from Declan. Good first clearance. So, in fact, as you may be able to hear in the background, Clint Ianson just been called out for his Jason Owen Open match, so he'll be playing a different tournament before it comes to his semi-final. Maybe no bad thing that, actually, just to keep warm, because this is a best of 13 match, so he's going to have a little bit of time to kill before we have a result here. Declan very much starting the way we know he's capable of, with a quick break and clearance. Lee will know that he's going to need to live with that side of the game. He's probably got the edge tactically, but he's going to have to do his share of hard work off the break. Make sure he gives himself some opportunities to go for first visit clearances. A powerful first break from Lee. Not the outcome he was looking for, though. And this is the kind of thing that could prove very costly. If he's going to start splitting the balls up and not potting one, he knows this is going to be a frame away pretty quickly. Not sure how Lee will be viewing this match. I think probably realistic about Declan's abilities. He's seen a lot of him. I don't know if he's necessarily played him a lot in tournaments, but Declan's had good success in tournaments that Lee's run, and he's been basing himself at Lee's club in Stoke for some periods in between events, so certainly be well aware of what's to come here. I think I'll just be relishing the fact that he's still competing at this level after so long and reaching goodness knows how many quarter-finals he must have racked up on the tour over the years, but a popular winner if he did find his way through, as of course will Declan, who always comes with a lot of support. Good opportunity this for Declan to get 2 frames ahead. Been 2 reasonably nice layouts off these first 2 breaks. If it's going to be a quick open game, you've got to think it's probably going to favour Declan. And Nick Finn's just stepped into the box. Just saying, Nick, I'm glad that we are getting the opportunity to stream this match. I think this should be an interesting match, sort of clash of 2 generations and of 2 styles.
Yeah, I think people were saying beforehand that Lee will potentially want to play to his strengths. He is a very wily player and does enjoy a tactical game, but he will possibly think that may play to his strengths, and he may be right. But the problem is his opponent has so much firepower. Anytime he comes to the table, he's making this kind of clearance, then it really does make things tough.
Yeah, I'm not sure that Lee is going to be that keen to get into a tactical game. I think one factor here is that he wants to be seen to be competing sort of in the modern game with players like Declan. I think he'll definitely, if the opportunity presents itself, I don't think he'll be at all unhappy to get drawn into that, but I think he's going to try and be fairly attacking where he gets the opportunity. He's well aware that to compete in the modern game, that's an important part of it. breaking so well so far, Declan, which is going to be an important part of this match. Can't really call it based just on the 3 breaks we've seen so far, but Declan has had 2 successful breaks in terms of potting balls, whereas his opponent has come up dry on his only opportunity.
I've just had a message that it's going to be Jake McCartney's birthday at midnight. I mean, like that guy needs an excuse to have a drink. That could end up to be a very messy evening. But I think the team in his corner are continuing to be sensible as long as Declan's still in. And cue ball's gone awry there and behind the 8 ball. I was just about to say that if Declan's break is working really well and Lee's doesn't start firing soon, this could be a pretty quick match. I mean, it's no fluke that Lee Kendall's got here. He is a high quality player, but he's now one of the more mature players on the tour, should we say. I mean, he's certainly not of any particular age, but he's up against one of the young guns here, as you mentioned earlier. And I mean, I've said it a couple of times on commentary over the weekend, this young man really is the real deal.
Yeah, he won the first title of the season in June in Blackpool. Very keen to add a second title.
He's one of those players you just feel safe in his hands, don't you? I mean, when he's on a clearance, you just feel that, I mean, if he misses a ball, it's not going to be through nerves. It'll just be through the sheer fact that he's human.
Yeah, and it all just looks quite controlled. I mean, he's quite an attacking player, but just never sort of looks reckless. He always seems to have a plan. You always trust that he has a pocket for all the balls. He's not going to just pot 6 of them and try a tricky cannon off the last one. He's always got the route mapped out in advance. Just play a little cannon onto the yellow here to hold position. Nice control positional shot to get down for the black. So it's all pretty much one-way traffic so far. Lee Kendall hasn't exactly done a lot wrong. He's lost the lag and then had a dry break, and that's what's led to this 3-0 scoreline. It's a tough score sometimes.
I don't expect this to be all one-way traffic, though. He's too good, and he's clearly playing well. He's come through a pretty tough field so far. Let's have a look at the progress of both of these players to this point. Declan Brennan in his opening match beat Ben Anderson 7 frames to 2. He then went on to play Daniel Singh, who he beat 7 frames to 0. He then beat Shane Thompson 7 frames to 2 on this stream yesterday. He beat Enrico Forgione last night 7 frames to 2. Sorry, that was first thing this morning, should I say. And then he had a really tough game against Pat Ward, where Pat Ward fought back at him, and he won that 7-5, and that brings him to this point. Lee Kendall turned up just a few minutes before 3 p.m. on Friday because of the bad traffic situation, and he was straight into action against Ricky Gore, which he won 7 frames to 2. He then played Ben Swinnerton and won 7-3. Took on David McNamara and beat him 7 frames to 4. And then Arfin Dad he played last night, and that was, well, one of his old foes. He's already lost to Arfin in this very series, and he beat Arfin 7-3 yesterday evening. And a great win in a Hill game against Jack Whelan in the last 16 game just earlier today. Won 7 frames to 6. And that brings us up to date with how both of the players found their way to this point.
Yeah, it's a pretty tough run isn't it? David McNamara, one of the most promising up-and-coming young players, and then off and down, followed by Jack Whelan. I mean, any of those could have been the final. Both of those have won tournaments this season, so have been to the finals. He's done really well to carve his way through that field. And Declan, we've seen a couple of times on the stream and has looked really good so far this weekend.
Lee will be very annoyed with that shot. He is fiercely competitive, and he'll want a really good showing, especially being on stream. It very much is a case of the old guard against the young pretender. Lee Kendall, been around the scene for a number of years. He's been England captain for what seems like decades.
Yeah, I think it is decades, something like 1998, wasn't it?
30 years. So yeah,
I think maybe played for England for 30 years and been captain since.
Yeah.
I think it's about 98.
That's amazing, absolutely amazing. Imagine playing for England for 3 decades. And Declan Brennan, although he seems to have been around for quite some time now, he's still fairly new to the scene in relative terms, but he really has hit the ground running.
I think I'm right in saying Lee may have played in every one of the World Rules World Championships from 1992 onwards till the last one was 2019. We've had 2 years off because of COVID. I don't know if anybody else holds that record. It's hard to imagine there are too many people that have played in every single one in that period. Reached the world final in 2012 where he lost to his good friend John Rowe. He's lost twice now in the world final. He's never captured the individual crown, Lee Kendall, but has won countless world team championships with England, so has a pretty extensive trophy cabinet. Declan Brennan also yet to win his first world title, although hard to imagine that will continue for too much longer. He's going to be fairly hotly tipped for future events. The man that has won the world title is one that you could just see in the back of shot there, Sean Chipperfield.
Yeah, he's going to be in action again. In action again against Callum Singleton. He's currently leading 1-0.
Yeah, that's going to be a bit of a contrast in styles. I think they're both at the youngish end of the spectrum. Callum is one of the more tactical of the young guard coming through. I mean, I'm not saying that will be the way the match will plan out, but he's certainly more tactical than Chippy is most of the time. Pretty important frame, you'd think this for Lee. He doesn't want to be slipping too far behind in this match. Don't think he exactly needs to remind Declan of his abilities, but it doesn't hurt to get a few frames on the board earlier on just to remind him that you are in the game.
He was playing to pot that, but he'll take the second prize, covering the pocket. He's not left anything.
Yeah, the red's definitely in the better position right now. Never really want your opponent back at the table though. As you say, it may actually turn out to be a benefit of the fact that red has stayed there, but still things can happen. Declan might find a way to improve the position even though it's not got the easiest starting opportunity. Not a shot you'll see very often from Declan, voluntarily tying up one of his own balls, but not really have very much choice there. See how positive Lee wants to be. Does he immediately want to spring this ball back out, or is he going to be content to bide his time for a bit longer? One thing for sure is that no one has played more frames of competitive World Rules pool in this kind of situation than Lee Kendall, so he knows all the moves when it comes to these tactical games.
Yeah, that's a really good point, actually. I can't imagine there would be another player on the planet who's played at the top level.
No, I mean, I think one thing with having played for England for so long, it's just really good hard match practice, that kind of one-frame pool, playing in front of people and with a team shouting for you is just a really pressured environment. It's much more pressured than most singles tournaments, so if you can consistently handle yourself well there, you're not going to be nervous playing in a singles event.
So in the meantime, all of the other tables in action, one other table 14's got a semi-final from the main event, but everything else is playing from the Jason Owen Open, and all of the tables currently being played on. I just ran into Gareth Hibbert and I said to him, "Are you still in the Jason Owen?" Just ironically, because obviously in the last event he went out. In fact, the event before last, he went out of the first round of the main event and then had a really deep run in the Jason Owen. And then in the last event, went out in the first round and won the Jason Owen. And in this event, he went out in the first round and he's still in the Jason Owen, but he is trading early bell 2 frames to 1 at the moment. So I said, "You're not going to do it again, are you?" He said, "Well, hopefully."
Meanwhile, back on this table, what an effort from Declan Brennan to have got to this point. This did not look a very promising clearance when he embarked on it, but this is the kind of magic that he can conjure up. Oh, he's just pushed that one onto the far jaw. I think I'd be pretty relieved, Lee Kendall. I think for a moment he'd been thinking, oh, this is absolutely fine, but then once Declan got a few balls into that, he was suddenly thinking, well, maybe actually he could clear up.
Still one troublesome ball on reds. That's tied up on the left-hand side cushion. And now Declan, the yellow, after hitting the knuckle, has just gone across the face of that red ball. So whereas he did have an opportunity at one point to be able to double it into the middle, I don't think he's got that luxury now. So I think he's going to play the double. Played it as a bit of a shot to nothing. Played it at dead weight pace where he wasn't going to leave too much for Declan.
Yeah, that's a well thought out shot if you look at where the reds are now. All there for him if he comes back to the table, and no easy opener for Declan.
We're down to 32 players now in the Jason Owen Open. Of course, Declan is still in that event. Josh Kane awaits him after the conclusion of this game. Jake McCartney 3-0 up against Neil Davey, and Scott Pope 2-1 against Brett Wild. Nathan Ellis 2-1 up against John McAllister. Alex Lewis 2-1 up against Shane Thompson. So there's a hint of a couple of shocks on the cards as we look down through that scorecard. We'll keep an eye on that.
This is an important opportunity for Lee Kendall. He's got to take them from here. Declan came close with that double, but now it's staying over the corner pocket. Lee can really ask for a much better chance than this. The fact that the yellows ended up there has removed one of the pockets for the black, but that aside, this is a very presentable opportunity, and it's by far the best opportunity he's had so far in this match. The first 3 frames, all he had was one dry break. Really needs to open his account now. Well, this is unusual. It's extremely rare to see a player call for a rest. And that was a shot you could have played position quite a few ways. I mean, It felt like he'd probably just run off the right-hand side cushion and get to a similar position, but it felt like that gave him more control.
The obvious pocket for the 8 ball is the bottom right, but that's covered by the yellow, so just something else to think about as he works his way through this break. I think ideally he'll take the just depends how he sees it now. He could leave the red just above the 8 ball as his last ball, but then he'd have to leave the right angle to stay on that side of the table. So
yeah, I think that probably is what he's going to do. That would seem to be the safest way to guarantee position on the black. Well, he's left himself an angle to, well, you'd think more angle than he wanted, but to screw down the left-hand side of the table, he's going to have to take the last red into the middle now.
I felt he was, I don't know, far be it for me to question, but it just felt like he was better leaving the angle to the left and then bringing the cue ball across to the right-hand side of the table, because then he could leave himself a choice. But, he looks like he's played that very well. To say it was, a safe enough option, I guess. It's.
Yeah, that was a good last shot though, because it's very easy to get into the cue ball too much. If it runs a couple of inches down, then suddenly you've got no way of getting back to the black.
Yeah.
Yes, it's been a good finish. I mean, it wasn't the most difficult position, but he was under some pretty significant pressure. So, in the circumstances of the match, this is an important clearance. So gets his first frame on the board. It still trails by 3 frames to 1, but at least he's opened his account now.
Of course, just catching up on the chat, and I'm not sure what the direct question was, but I noticed somebody mentioned 9 ball, and of course, famously, Lee Kendall was part of the Moscone Cup team way back in the day. That would have been, wow, I'll probably have to look it up, but
1994, I think, the first one.
Was it 94?
It was 94 or 95 that Lee played. I saw some footage of it recently. There was a clip of Jimmy White playing. You could see Lee in the background. He just looked so young, wearing a massively oversized waistcoat.
Yeah.
All skin and bones back then.
I know he was definitely in the 95 because he partnered Steve Davis in the doubles. I mean, he's got some great stories when you actually get a chance to spend some time with him. He's got some, because that would have been back in the day of, the early days of Earl Strickland, I guess, and
Alex Higgins played in it.
He did indeed, yeah. I think Lee partnered with Alex in one of the doubles games, if I remember.
It reminds you of just how much times have changed. You sort of forget when you live through it, but you'd watch the players would go and play a shot, then would go back to their corner for a drag of a cigarette and sip of a pint, like whilst at the table. It seems almost unthinkable now.
Yeah, 95 Moscone Cup when Europe won 16 frames to 15. And the American team, Lou Butera, Mike Massey, Bobby Hunter, Dallas West, Mark Wilson, John DeToro. Probably not that many recognisable names in the modern game, but conversely, the European team, you probably recognise them all. Darryl Peach, Steve Davis, Alex Higgins, Lee Kendall, Oliver Ortman, Tom Storm and Jimmy White.
Yeah, young Darryl Peach there. He went on to become a very good 9-ball player, won the world title in 2008, I think it was. 2008 or 2009.
amazing to be able to have that experience back in the day of playing in that Moscone Cup. What a incredible opportunity to play amongst those players. And I guess, Lee, I don't know the story of how he got into it. He was obviously a very good pool player at the time, but you wonder, with all the pool players around in that kind of era, you wonder what the story was of how he actually managed to work his way into that team. Probably not an obvious pick.
Well, I think I just think 9-ball wasn't really played. Like, if you sort of take yourself back to the early 90s, like, that wasn't really the game. They were trying to bring it over to the UK, and the tables were coming over. That's why there were a lot of snooker players promoted by Matchroom. I suspect Lee was probably one of the leading 8-ball players at the time, and so they wanted some pool representation, and that was as close to 9-ball as they could get. The success, I mean, in later years, once Steve Davis and others dropped out, there was just such a strong 9-ball scene in the UK by then. There were just so many good, dedicated players that it was almost unthinkable that you'd keep the snooker players after a while, but they played a pretty important role in the early days. And actually, when you watch the old footage, you realise how good Steve Davis and Jimmy White were playing with snooker cues, or in Davis's case, like a very slightly adapted snooker cue, and they looked really good. Like they were kind of playing it a bit like snooker, but they were good players.
Yeah. Great potters. Probably didn't have the control over the cue ball that some of the Americans did, but their potting ability was incredible. In the meantime, Lee Kendall's broken off in frame number 6, and he's dumped the cue ball into the pocket, and that really is disaster. While we were talking previously, Declan Brennan has made a light work of that 5th frame and taken a 4-1 lead. Now you feel, if Declan can complete this clearance, and it's hard to see how he doesn't, then could be writing on the wall already, you think?
Yeah, I mean, Lee Kendall's the kind of guy that's not going anywhere. He's going to stick in it, but it's hard to see. You can see him winning some more frames. I'm not sure you can see him coming back to win from 5-1 down. Declan's just got too much firepower off his own break that you just, where do you get the chances from?
The thing is with Declan, if there was ever a point in his career where he would freeze because of the big occasion, that's long past him. He's so used to these big occasions now. I think he just seems to take it all in his stride, and I think that's one of the great strengths that he has. Is he just doesn't seem to show any nerves. He's got a nerve of steel. I've never seen him twitch on a shot in a big occasion. Just casually jaunts around the table and does his work.
I think particularly in a tour like this where he's won already, there just isn't that pressure. The only time maybe I'm not saying this will be the case, but he's going to want to add some world titles. That's kind of the only thing missing from his CV. Like, maybe that would be the one time, a bit like golfers trying to win their first major. Yeah. If he was ever going to feel pressure, it would be then.
Yeah, that would be the big test.
There's no reason to think that would be the case. He's never, as you say, shown any real signs of that, but I think that will be a challenge to come for him. I think he's also past the point of needing to sort of impress people and live up to the billing.
Yeah,
he did turn up with a very big billing, which was quite a big burden in the early days, but he's kind of justified that now.
That's a really good point, actually, because I mean the Irish are so passionate about their pool, and they knew what this guy was capable of. Ronan had been singing his praises for a number of years because Roland had practiced with him and played with him, and Ronan was already saying this guy's going to be one of the best ever, and that almost kind of put a burden on Declan. In some ways, he carried the hopes of the nation, and the entire nation. Were everywhere you looked on social media, they were saying he's the best player in the world and so on and so forth. And you wondered whether that would put some kind of pressure on him, but he just seems to have ridden it all. He's just such a mature head on still young shoulders.
Yeah, because it was difficult. People were saying that before he'd won many big tournaments, and it was almost like that's not. You can't really say he's the greatest of all time, which some people were even saying in those early days. But he's very much lived up to. Obviously, I don't think it would be right to be talking about him as the greatest of all time until he's been around a lot longer and won a lot more. But he's definitely got himself into the reckoning to be in that position in a few years' time. And ultimately, results and longevity are both important. Like Lee Kendall, the ultimate example of not just performing at this standard for a few years, but for 30 plus years he's performed at this standard.
So So 5-1 ahead now, and breaks off and breaks with success again. Not quite going to have it all his own way. The yellows look pretty good, but he's just got a very ordinary opening shot on yellows of a plant to top left. Reds, well, they need a little more work, but he's got an easier opener. I'm not going to try and for a second to call what he's going to go for here, Mark, because my success rate today is in the very low figures.
Yeah, and I think you've summed it up well there. The pros and cons come from the opening shot more than anything else.
Yeah, if you can make this plant, then I think it's frame over. And, oh, wow.
That's a good shot, because that was as much of the pocket as he could see. It wasn't that he misjudged that. Like, he couldn't get it any nearer the pocket from the angle he had. He had to just sort of rest it onto the lip and hope it fell in.
I guess he was happy in the knowledge that even if it sat over the pocket, then he was in control of the frame, but very happy to see it drop and have the opportunity to continue attacking in the frame. Still needs a delicate little shot here just to stun across the face of the red onto the other yellow in the bulk area and then work his way back down the table. He's looking probably to finish, I would think, fairly straight on the yellow in the middle of the table, trying to play it straight into the bottom right pocket. He's just telling you now where he wants to be. Doesn't want a big angle, certainly doesn't want to be on the right hand side. He could take a small angle on the left because then he could run it off the cushion, but ideally he'd want to be straight and he can just run the cue ball through 9 inches or so.
Yeah, that's a good point. Like, sometimes you can be off angle the wrong way. One side is okay and one side is not. And as you rightly say, like, being sort of down the left-hand side as we look at it would be okay. The other way would make life really hard.
I think he's just, no, you can see from his face there, he's just between the two now. So if he's not quite straight, he's just to the left-hand side. So he played it with the caution of the left-hand side, but he's almost not come far enough to the left-hand side to be able to run the cue ball off the side cushion now. So it's just betwixt and between. So I think probably just needs to take his medicine, just drop it in, leave the cue ball closer to that right-hand side cushion.
Yeah, I mean, he's not going to have any trouble leaving a shot at the yellow. It's just he may not be able to get quite as near to it as he wanted, but I don't think you need to be greedy.
Oh, wow. That's a great shot. I didn't expect him to come all the way down the table, but well, when you can do that, it just makes it easy. And Lee Kendall appreciating that shot, just a tap on the knee.
Yeah, I mean, that's played as a stun run through as well. That's a very good shot. You just get the wrong part of the cue ball, and that can end up feet away from where you've played it.
Honestly, I think people underestimate those kind of shots, and that's a high tariff shot for me to finish down in that gap at the bottom of the table. But I mean, he took his chances and said he backed himself to get into that area, knowing that if he gets there, it's going to be the frame. And that is now 6 frames to 1. And this is a very one-sided game. Lee Kendall, in all honesty, hasn't done a great deal wrong. But Declan Brennan, on this kind of form, he's going to be a hard man to beat.
Yeah, I mean, it's just where do you get enough chances to beat him? He's taking all of his own breaks. If you show any weakness, come up dry, he's taking that as well. It's just all first visit stuff right now.
I think Lee will walk away from this game, assuming he's going to lose it from here, which I think's a fair assumption. He'll walk away from the game saying, well, what could I do? It's one of those you just put it down to hey-ho.
Yeah, I mean, it's not one that you dwell on too much. You obviously wanted a different result, but it's the ones where you lose in a decider or you've had one hand on it that are really hard to stomach.
Yeah.
I think Lee will see this as a good weekend, although, I mean, he has won so much that anything other than winning is not great, but I think he hasn't been probably in the winner's circle quite as much in the last couple of years, and has obviously had the COVID layoff that we've all had, so I think we'll just be happy to be back performing at this level.
And it just shows the measure of the man. He never resigns himself to his fate, because even when he sat down there, you could just see the hint of a little shake of his head to say, what do I have to do? I can't even make a ball off the break. And even now he was thinking, when he got to the table then, he definitely won't be resigned. He would have been thinking, make a ball, get yourself a frame, another frame on the board, wait for a mistake from Declan. I mean, the truth is, Lee would have found himself in worse positions than this and come back and turned the game around. But it's a very difficult proposition when you can't make a ball off the break and you're playing someone as good as Declan on this kind of form.
Yeah, I mean, Lee is probably one of the best in the world for coming back. He's not somebody that you particularly want to have a huge lead against. You know, in that sense, you know he's going to stay in there. He's not going to give up like some people would. But the way Declan's playing, I just don't see there being 6 opportunities to get back into this match.
So Sean Chipperfield now 4-1 up against Callum Singleton. He continues his run of form.
Yeah, and how would that be for a final if it got to that? Chipperfield-Brennan final, that would be a high quality encounter, you would imagine. This is of course only the quarter-final there. This one is slightly further behind, so Decky's going to have another match after this one before he gets through to the final.
He's tried to find the gap between the 2 yellows for the red just to the left of the blue spot. I think he may have just got there. So yeah, he can drop this in and then just run up into the top half of the table to then deal with these 2 balls at the top. Just the thing is with Declan, it keeps it simple. There's no histrionics. He doesn't give too much away. He's stoic in his attitude. He's got a good poker face. You just don't. I mean, he just keeps things simple. There's other players who, you know, it's never their fault. They never missed a ball. It's always down to a kick or the cloth or, you know, the table was running just badly, and Declan just gets about his business. And that's it. Keeps it simple.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. He takes responsibility for his own game. If it wasn't good enough, he knows he needs to improve it. He doesn't just look for somebody else to blame.
He's just run out of position here, though. That just needed an inch less of pace, and he was absolutely perfect and probably nailed on to win this match. But now he's just got an awkward shot. He can only see probably 3/4 of the ball, so he's going to have to, even if he can try and, you can see there maybe only half a ball. Even if he can turn it over, then position on the 8 ball really difficult.
Yeah, this isn't one where it's any good really, just to swerve through and find a way of potting it. He really needs to be able to screw back in a pretty straight line.
He's looking at the double. He's going to double the red off the side cushion. Oh, he looked for the flick. My apologies, just looking to flick it off the yellow and into the pocket. But he extends the life in the tournament of Lee Kendall, and Lee with a great chance to win another frame, make the scoreline more respectable, and 6 frames to 2. All you can do then is hope for some kind of dry break or mistake from Declan. It's a long way back from here.
Yeah, I think at this point you're just kind of thinking about respectability and just getting a few frames on the board, and then if they start coming, you can start thinking about the win at that point. Ideal position though, if you are this far behind, this is the kind of open position. At least he can get his hand on the table and pot a few balls, give him some confidence. Clint Jansen lies in wait for the winner of this match. He's currently playing his 4th round match in the Jason Owen, 3-1 up against Dylan Leary at the moment. So it'll be pretty much back-to-back action for him. As soon as he finishes, he'll be waiting to play one of these guys. A couple of other results from the 4th round of the Jason Owen. Jake McCartney threw 5-0 against Neil Davey. So pretty good evening's work for him. Early Bale ended up prevailing 5-1 over Gareth Hibbert, so the fairy tale run in the Jason Owen is over for Gareth. And the other match that's completed so far, Dom Cooney 5-2 against Sanjay Patel. Normally so good from this kind of position. This is the kind of position you often see him grind out, where somebody makes some kind of mistake and he grinds his way back into a frame. Then you've got to do the honours with the remaining balls at the end. Over the years he's proved so reliable at clearing up from these kind of positions. No one really likes to lose 7-1, so whilst the scoreline doesn't exactly matter, I think Lee will just be happy to have a bit more time at the table, win this one, maybe try and win a couple more, and then at that point you can start daring to dream that you could get back into it. From Declan's point of view, obviously no real drama at this stage, plenty more time, although kind of frustrating. Would like to have just got the match done 7-1 and go and take a break for a few minutes before the semi-final. You saw there just a little glance up from Declan at Lee, just it's like, sure you meant to leave the cue ball there?
He definitely didn't. This is a treacherous cut now, really fine. And the cue ball, how do you control that to get... I mean, naturally it comes bottom cushion, side cushion, and then he's going to have to navigate the entire table to get back across.
And worse still from his perspective, the black's in the way. Sometimes when you overrun that shot, you just have to take it long instead, but that's not even an option.
I think this has got a little bit of in-off written on it as well, isn't it?
Yeah, I think he's trying to screw in to hit the side cushion before the corner, but yeah.
This is skinny.
Oh, how well has he hit that?
That's a lovely shot. Yeah, I'm really glad he made that one. To make him feel a lot better. May not change the result of the game, and almost certainly won't, but it's nice to play a decent shot, play a decent recovery, and get another frame on the board. Now it's 6-2. Declan still needs one more. Lee Kendall needs to win 5.
So his fate very much in his own hands as he steps up to break in frame 9, leading by 6 frames to 2. Would like to get it done here. No point getting embroiled in an unnecessarily long match that could put you under some needless stress.
Well, it's a dry break. The pool gods doing what they do, saying, well, you made the mistake, so we're going to punish you.
Yeah, how often do we see that? It's not so bad when you're 6-2 up, but if this was closer to the end of the match, this can be really treacherous for a player suddenly coming up dry at the wrong moment. Pretty nice opportunity this as well. Like if you're Lee Kendall stepping up here, again, another very presentable opportunity.
Yellows look pretty delightful.
Yeah, this one just squeezes past the red into the middle and then naturally be able to get position on the one nearest the baulk line. And then once he's done that, all of the balls just neatly down this end of the table, so won't have very much to do with the cue ball.
Yeah, when you've got balls at the top of the table, the bottom of the table, sometimes you need a ball in the middle to be able to transition down, but this one's pretty much perfect just to screw back through the gap and get down, start his work amongst these balls at the bottom. And this frame should be fairly quickly over. Can't see Lee taking too much time. But suddenly, 6-3, Declan just starts to question. Maybe he's still feeling very comfortable. He knows he's still in charge, but suddenly 6-3. If Lee Kendall can find a break condition the next at 6-4, the match suddenly has a very different complexion than it did when Declan ran out of position on that last ball.
Yeah, I think it's the next frame that's going to be the key one, assuming he clears up here, which we fully expect him to do. If he could clear off his own break, Lee Kendall, in the next one, at 6-4, as you say, would be suddenly, that is something to start thinking about. Suddenly it starts going through your head. I was 6-1 up. Don't want to be losing from here. I mean, I still think Declan's going to get chances in this match, and he's not a guy that turns down chances very often, so I'm not certain this is going to be more than a last hurrah for Lee, but he's doing well to hold himself together right now. Purposefully leaving quite a lot of angles, maybe left a shade more than he needed here, but it shouldn't be a problem.
You just never know.
Sometimes you just have to stick into a match, which is what Lee's done. Didn't really have much luck in the early going. He's struggling with his break and struggling to get the opportunities. But from 6-1 down, he's reeled off 2 good clearances to give himself a faint glimmer of hope.
Declan's just stepped away for a bathroom break. We'll do the same just for a couple of minutes. We'll be back with the action as soon as he is.
So Declan back in the arena. Very important break this for Lee Kendall as he steps up in frame 10. Currently leading 6 frames, currently trailing 6 frames to 3, was 6-1 behind. If he's got any chance of winning this match, you feel he really needs to nail this break and get it to 6-4, just keep his opponent frozen away from the table. Well, he struck that well, and the ball has gone in. It looked for a moment like he was going to come up dry, but one of the last balls moving has found the corner pocket. At first glance, this looks a pretty good layout for him. Be very happy just to have made a ball, frankly, but this is a very presentable opportunity. And 6-4, that really would be starting to get back into the match. That's definitely giving Declan something to think about at that point. I firmly expect him to give this plenty of thought. The last thing he wants to do is to rush into any mistakes here. Well aware that any mistakes could be his last of the match. Just to bring you up to speed on the semi-final that started, Sean Chipperfield currently 4-2 against Callum Singleton. Was 4-1 up, but Callum's just won the 6th frame. Race to 8 in the semi-finals and final. I think it's looking pretty likely now, just to warn people that the final will get held over till tomorrow. The clock has passed 10 o'clock and this is still the quarter-final, so even if we go straight into the semi after this, it's likely to be pushing midnight by the time we have the final lineup determined. So yellows, of course, for Lee, because there's no real opening shot at a red. Oh, my mistake. He could get through to that red. I thought he was having to cut the yellow into the middle. I think he could get through, but now he can get through to that. The table at his mercy. So he's done what he needed to so far in this frame. He's made a ball off the break. He's negotiated the opening ball to get himself onto the reds. Can he hold himself together for another 6 balls? And from a neutral's point of view, very interested to see this match go a bit deeper. Don't want it to sound like we're rooting against Dec, because we're really not. I think we've just wanted to see Lee give a good account of himself having got to this point. It looked like it was going to be somewhat of a formality for Declan, but actually if Lee could get it back to 6-4, it would be kind of game on again. I think one thing Lee will be happy about is he's had the opportunity to show what he can do. Once Declan had got 6-1 up, it was starting to look very one-sided. At least whatever the outcome, Lee's shown what a match player he is.
I think he would have probably liked to have been dead straight on the red to left centre just to run the cue ball through. Now he's going to have to cannon the red. It's just to the right of the one that he's going to pot now, which could go wrong. It's going to push it towards the 8 ball and he doesn't want to tie it up. So he really needs to judge this pace well. You can see from the little grimace on his face, he knows this could have been a lot simpler. This angle's a lot bigger than it needed to be. If it was straight, he had a choice. He could run through, screw back, do whatever he wanted to do, but now all he can do is cannon that red. And the problem is, if he cannons it too hard, he pushes the black on top of the red towards the right hand side. If he doesn't cannon it hard enough, the red could stick on the 8 ball.
Yeah, you feel he's just going to have to try and run through and leave himself a shot, but you're absolutely right. Knocking the black safe would be a real pain. I think the trouble with being too delicate with this is it would be very easy to get stuck behind that red.
The problem is he can't be particularly delicate because he needs to think about his next positional shot. So I mean, he has to run the cue ball through at least enough to get past the 8 ball to be able to see that one on the right hand side. And he's got up off the shot a few times now.
Yeah, I think you've just got to be positive. If the black does get knocked safe, then so be it. But you've just got to run the cue ball through and give yourself a chance at a shot. Shows how one little positional mistake can very quickly compound. Well, in the end, he's played a really good shot there. I didn't think he had the angle to do that. Was able to just screw off that. That really could have gone wrong, but he's back in prime position now. He's played a couple of shots like that. It's a reflection not only of how well he's cueing, but how responsive these cloths are, because on more slippery cloths you just can't get the spin to take quickly enough to play that kind of shot. But he's got some tables with these cloths in his club. He's obviously experienced enough with this cloth to understand what's possible, and felt like he could just nip into the cue ball enough to hold it. So back in perfect position, and just the simple stuff to do. And from a pretty unlikely position, it has to be said, suddenly it is going to be 6-4.
Yeah, Lee Kendall actually played a role, I believe, in the design of this cloth. It's a Strachan superfine cloth. I think there's two variants of it. There's one that they use on the snooker table, and they've developed this. I think it's just a slightly different weave for the pool table, and it was designed specifically for 8-ball, and they wanted to create a bit of an identity as well in using the grey cloth. It does also come in the traditional olive, but grey in here, I think it just creates an identity for the game, takes it away from the traditional game of snooker. I quite like it, and I've always quite liked the grey actually, because it's a good contrast against the reds and yellows on the table. It kind of makes the colours stand out more for me. It's going back to the game, the whole different complexion on this game now. This is a huge break for Declan. And
luckily for Declan, it was a huge break as well.
Yeah. Wow. Look at the yellows. Absolute dream leave for him. Lee Kendall would have just been wishing and hoping for any kind of chance to get back to the table, because there was Declan probably 20 minutes ago going through a clearance where he would have been winning this match 7-1, ran out of position, and then not too much later he's having a break off at 6-4, knowing that if he makes a mistake, the next time he comes to the table, it could be 6 frames each. And that is the very fine margin that these guys are playing to.
Yeah, I think you can see from that resigned smile as Lee sits in his chair, he knows just what a good opportunity this is. He's watched Declan clear up from much harder positions than this before. And from Decky's point of view, this is absolutely perfect. Like, having gone 6-4 down, what he didn't really want was a sort of half chance where he was chasing after some finish. This is, by his standards, a pretty routine out. This is the one that will allow him to book his place in that semi-final against Clint Jansen. (5-3) the scoreline for those that are following the other semi-final between Sean Chipperfield and Callum Singleton. Sean ahead by the 2 frames. So not easy to see where a mistake would be coming from, but I think it will be going through Declan's mind that the same could have been said a few frames ago, so he wants to be absolutely sure about this. Looks like he's got a pretty perfect angle just to drop this one into the centre. And the last yellow hanging invitingly over the bottom corner pocket. I mean, I think on the balance of what we've seen, Declan has unquestionably been the better player, but Lee's played a part in this match, and he's held himself together very well under immense pressure at the end.
Yes, indeed, and Declan Brennan with his simple 8-ball to make his way into the semi-final, and he does so. And of course, in that other semi-final, incidentally, Sean Chipperfield 5-3 up against Callum Singleton. But Declan Brennan will play Clint Jansen, and you're going to see that action just in about 10 minutes or so. In the meantime, we're just going to go and have a couple of words with Declan, and I'll leave you with a summary from Mark.
And what great action we've seen today. Warm handshake from Lee Kendall. I think he knows that he played a part in that match, but just came up against a man in pretty imperious form. Declan did what Declan does, of clearing up every time he gets the opportunity. Very well deserved win, and it will be an entertaining semi-final that we'll have coming up in a few minutes. As Declan just takes his cue and goes into the studio, we'll grab a quick word with Nick.
Deck, Lee Kendall, the CEO of Ultimate Pool, I think that was a really shrewd move to let him back in the game, because it looked like you were going to beat him 7-1, and I think he was just getting your P60 ready to give you the sack.
Well, there's absolutely no doubt I was trying to beat him 7-1. Absolutely no doubt about it. You can see how quickly he could turn there, you know. Only I had a good break there to go to win the match. Like, anything can happen, you know.
That's amazing, isn't it? I mean, you've just gone from clearing the balls up, just about to win 7-1. In your mind, you're thinking happy days. Great win over the old Fox, and suddenly, before you know it, it's turned around. And what's the pressure like on that break at 6-4?
Oh, it is. It's massive, you know. Every break's important to try and win a match, and especially Lee, because Lee's played these rules and he knows the tactical side inside out. So I'm praying for him not to go scrappy, you know.
But if you make a mistake on that break, realistically, when you come back to the table, it could be 6 each.
I know.
That's just such fine margins that you're playing. We spoke probably about a month or so ago, and you said that you were just not maybe struggling for form, but maybe the luck was just, you felt was just going against you, because you get that periods where you run in and out of it.
Yeah.
Do you feel you got over that now? Because you seem to be hitting a really good patch of form again.
Well, it's just I've had a wee bit of luck here and there in different matches. I played Pat Ward and stuff, and I should have went 6 each as well. He made a mistake you usually wouldn't see, and just them wee things just seemed to go my way this weekend.
Yeah, it's all good though. So now playing a semi-final against Clint Hansen.
Yeah.
You'd have played Clint a few times before, I'm sure.
Oh, I'm actually not quite sure if I have, you know.
Really?
Can't remember if I played Clint or not, to be honest.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, no, I think it could be the first time. Off the top of my head, I haven't remembered.
Be an interesting watch, and back on the action in the main arena pretty shortly, I reckon. So go and compose yourself, and in the meantime, I'm just going to bring in the manager, because I want to find out his opinion. Thanks, Decky. Best of luck, mate. So I'm going to bring in... this guy's is Mark O'Hare. This is Decky's manager, who follows him about everywhere. Mark, give us your thoughts on how he's playing so far this weekend.
Really solid stuff, Nick. I'm really impressed, to tell you the truth. We've been over here so long, 2.5 weeks. You know, we were in Daventry 2 weeks ago. Things didn't really go his way. It was quite frustrating. And then we had the Ultimate Pool stuff last weekend, and he was a bit unfortunate. But I have to say, like, he's put a lot of practice in this week. He's got the head down, and he's playing solid stuff, as you can see. Like, he's playing the best stuff.
Yeah. And obviously he's got the good support from yourself. You're with him all the time. I mean, it must be hard being on the road, away from home for such long periods of time.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's like a real bromance we have. We're best friends. Plus, I helped Declan off the table with a lot of stuff, you know. With sponsorship, and we're building his website, and we have a few things in the pipeline. But I mean, he puts the quality in on the practicing, and he's reaping the rewards, and hopefully we can bag a title this weekend.
Yeah, definitely. So, do you think he's going all the way this weekend?
I wouldn't like to be put on the spot like that. I'd be optimistic. I mean, he's got a semi-final match now against Clint. It's going to be Clint's a class opponent as well, and then he's back into the last 32 against Josh Kane tomorrow in the Jason Owen event. So fingers crossed, Nick. I don't know. Are you going to have a side bet with me here in the next one?
Not.
Come on, we've been doing it all day, Nick. You know.
Mate, you've had my pants down enough this weekend. I can't afford any more money. I'm not going to line your pocket
we can go one more, I guess. Come on, we can go one more.
We'll see. We might have a friendly fight.
Yeah. Okay. Well, okay. That sounds good.
So next action up is going to be Clint Hansen against Declan Brennan. That's going to be a great game to watch. We're really looking forward to that one. Join us for it.
Thank you.